Welcome to Campfire Conversations. I'm Jeremy Litchfield. Before microphones and media, we had fire. It was the first circle and the first stage. It's where people gathered to connect. This podcast returns to that circle. These aren't interviews, they're heart-centered conversations where love and fear both have space to show up. Campfire Conversations is part of my Heartstrong adventure, a journey exploring where love and fear show up in our world, especially in the lives of men, and how freeing men from fear helps heal individuals, communities, and systems. These conversations aren't about providing answers. If anything, they bring up more questions. My hope is that what you hear makes you think differently, see things from a different angle, and maybe even sparks a conversation that leads to a breakthrough for you or someone you share it with. In this conversation, I'm sitting down with Michael Douglas, the founder of Maine Primitive, a place that has become very special to me. Mike grew up in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. As a kid, his world was cedar swamps and endless woods. Then he watched that world disappear to development. The dirt roads got paved, the neighbors stopped talking, and the community he loved became, in his words, more of a municipality than a community. That loss made him angry. He joined the Marine Corps, moved to Maine, and eventually built Maine Primitive, a place where people come to reconnect with the woods, with each other, and with themselves. Nearly 10 years ago, my wife Becca and I showed up at Maine Primitive for a weekend course. I was expecting hardcore survival from a Marine. What I found was a man leading with kindness and compassion that changed how I see strength. About a year ago, I started volunteering there every week. He started mentoring me. I started helping him with his business, and we became close friends, the kind of friends who say, "I love you," and mean it. What we talk about in this conversation is how Mike moved from years of anger and grief to choosing love. We talk about why love and fear aren't enemies, but dancing partners. We talk about why attitude, not shelter, is the first rule of survival. And we talk about the difference between a child warrior who fights the world and an adult warrior who tends it. We sat by a fire at Maine Primitive the day after a big December snowstorm. What came out is one of the most grounded conversations I've had about what it means to choose love when anger would be so much easier. If this work resonates with you, I would love your support. The best way to do that is to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with someone who might need to hear it. These conversations matter, and your support helps them reach more people. Now, let's go to the fire. Mike, I want to thank you so much for sitting down on what has become a day after storm, snowy, but I don't think it could be any more perfect to film this conversation with you. And we talked a little bit about, what this is all about. And just to get us started, I'd love to hear, because here we are sitting around a fire on a beautiful December day. I mean, everything is still blanketed in white from the snow yesterday.
Yeah. It's warm, but beautiful. The snow is still on the boughs.
Right.
You'd think it would have dripped it off by now, but it's just the right temperature to be comfortable outside. And the boughs are just laden with these pre-holiday ornaments of beautiful, fluffy white clouds.
Well, even when I was driving up here this morning, I hate driving the highway, but I've got to tell you one thing. It was just, I love how every year that first snow always brings you back to a state of awe. Mm-hmm. It's just, it never gets less beautiful.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, if anything, it gets more beautiful every single year. That first snow.
I think the rhythm of our genetic clock is that we have just enough time between first snow and last snow to forget what's coming with the shoveling and the shorter days and the wrestling with clothing, that when it comes, you can't help but feel like a kid again and want to rush out and build a snowman and go tracking and just dive in it like an otter. It's so inviting.
We have some friends from Houston. It's one of Becca's roommates from college who Houston got snow last year and they had their first snow day ever. And she reached out to us and said, snow days are the best thing ever. And I'm like, they most certainly are. It's a completely unstructured day where you have nothing to do but play. And it doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult, right? So speaking of play, here we are sitting around a fire. You and I have developed a deep relationship over the last year. It was almost a year ago that I reached out and said, hey, you need any help around Maine Primitive? You need any help around the school? So we're here sitting and have a great year behind us. So I'd love to hear And it doesn't have to be a complete bio, but what are kind of some of the key parts of your life
Yeah.
that brought us to this moment?
I felt like flashing back to the 1970s A-Team where Mr. T was the character, Hannibal. Pain.
Oh, yeah.
Which, ironically or not, I'm grateful for. Because without that investment of dis-ease and having enough guidance from people older than me who still smiled more than they frowned, I would not be who I am today. The bio benchmarks would be growing up in the Pine Barrens and watching that once pristine wilderness disappear to where it is now, which is chunks the size of a big box store parking lot, divided by mega highways, arteries connecting Philadelphia to the Jersey Shore and New York City to the Jersey Shore and Washington, D.C. All of like this area was it was the first wildlife refuges in the nation. And it has been developed. When I say developed, it means something different to me as a piney watching my woods disappear. Because I saw behavior shifts. I saw couples who were my best friend's parents walking hand in hand and talking about their day on the dirt road I grew up on. And it stopped the day it was paved. And then when that was paved, more houses came. And when more houses came, you weren't allowed to have your well water anymore because it was contaminated. People stopped waving to each other in their cars and helping each other with lawn stuff and stopping to talk at the mailbox. Neighbors started to not even know who was in the next house next to them. And people, instead of saying hello, were still mad because you had to call the cops on them for having a party at 2 a.m. It became disassociative, impersonal. And the community aspect of a town that was burgeoning with more people was gone. It became more of a municipality than a community. And that caused a lot of anger. I joined the Marine Corps to further what I thought was my very limited understanding of wilderness survival. And I did not know that the man who was a heavy influence in not just the troop, but the district as a whole, Tom Brown Jr., was an anomaly. He was raised as a child by a Lipan Apache elder, and his skill sets were not what every adult volunteer brought to every troop in America, as I had perceived. When I went to the Marine Corps, I willingly volunteered for survival schools, unlike anyone else who was just trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
And so for a while, I was on a pretty good run. I got 5 of them before they decided, there's something wrong with you. You're not going to have any more of these. And I had a year and a half left. And I was really disappointed. I joined to hone my craft, but every school, unlike the Boy Scout experience, wasn't how to get deeper into the woods for longer periods of time. See, to me, that was survival.
Yeah.
Marine Corps, it was, this is what you have to do in order to get rescued, to get back home. And I wanted the woods to be home.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of references outside of Boy Scouts until I read The Tracker, which was written by Tom Brown Jr., and decided, all right, this guy, I got to go back. And I went to the Tracker school and I took all the classes I could. And then I moved to Maine to come to school because there were more trees than people. By the time I had gotten out of the Marine Corps, my woods, my childhood vast expanse of endless cedar swamps and scrub oak and pitch pine was replaced by a neighborhood. I could watch somebody wash their dishes from my own kitchens. And it was just too much. I was going through that wall of grief. But there's a thing here, right? I was going through the wall of grief. I did not adopt it as my personality for more than 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Because at some point you look back at that wake and you've burnt more bridges than you've built. And people are just sick of hearing you complain all the time. And you notice that you finally notice that even you're getting tired of being alone and miserable. And then that's when we have that catalyst of change. We go from fear-based, it's all going to end, how are we going to save the planet, to, all right, obviously no one's going to listen to what I have to say. I guess I have to roll up my sleeves and do something about it. What can I do in my limited life on this planet, in my neighborhood, to cultivate a little healthy spot? And with my own medicine, my own gifts, my own talent and perspective. And that's when the shift from angry adolescent into young adulthood starts to take place. And it's a powerful shift. And what is the catalyst of that shift from fear? You choose love.
Mm-hmm.
So that dichotomy is false. It's a dance. It's a relationship. You cannot have one without the other. How can you appreciate the warmth of a hug with someone you feel safe with when you don't have the antithesis to compare it to, that uncertainty of a 2 a.m. South Philly encounter with somebody with a screwdriver who's meeting you as you step off the bus and asking you for your wallet, right? Without a juxtaposition, there is no measurement. There's no comparison. So love in and of itself, if that's all that existed, would become a baseline of expectation. It wouldn't be intoxicating anymore. Or if it was, you'd get a hangover. Or you would just, why would you express breathing when you breathe every day? If you loved every day and that's all you've experienced, it doesn't become magic anymore. It's in its absence that we value what we've had and what we want to quest after. And every relationship is destined to separation. So there goes that fear again.
Yeah.
I fear losing you is the dark side of that coin saying, I love you.
Yeah. So when you think about, because I think one of the things I think about a lot is how culturally, especially in the US, we have taken a very complex, I mean, there's been research to show that love isn't actually a feeling, it's a drive, it's like thirst, it's like hunger. But we've taken this very complex emotion, this drive, this feeling, and we've distilled it down into this hallmark romantic version of something. And so when you actually think about what love is, how would you define it? How would you describe it? What to you is love? What is the essence of love?
It's half the balanced picture. You know, resilience comes of love and fear. It creates a drive. Nature teaches in 2 primary modes. We either go backwards in our brain to that flight or fight response, or we go forward because it's engaging, endorphin releasing, and fun. So in those primal expressions, if you want to get into the genetic need to procreate and the desire to want to be connected to all things, the desire to be truly helpful, these are traits in humanity that transcend culture, language barriers, geographic, political. Everybody wants to feel appreciated, needed, and loved. And if you know that and you use it to self-gain at the expense of that balance, it can become pretty dark. Used car salesmen, predators, sociopaths, psychopaths, cheesy lawyers, and you could really do harm. And there's not a lot of mentors out there. First, making safe space for people to grow into the fullness of their power. Second, to hold them accountable for the wake that they leave in their expression of that power.
Yeah.
Too often we have very powerful beings who feel completely isolated, alone, insecure, inadequate, and they're shouting at the world, and the world is shutting their ears because it's too much, but it's not being interpreted that way. I need to shout louder. They're obviously not hearing. No, you got to tone it down. Listen to what the birds are doing in the woods when you show up, because when you're not there, they're on the ground feeding. But before you get out of your car, they're fleeing like there's a wildfire. That's what you carry, right? So using nature as a diagnostic is one of my biases. It's what I love to share with people. Bird language, tracking, animal behavior, shape-shifting into something that is a representative of the power that you bring, and then studying that animal and recognizing while there's all these amazing gifts, they come at a cost.
Yeah.
And that's the balance between love and fear, right? I'm fresh into this role as a grandfather. I have my first grandchild of the 3 children that I have who are now adults. And the love of the idea of being a wisdom keeper has suddenly been tempered by the very real recognition that the tank has more space than fuel in my longevity, right? So the imminent demise, I've been watching my family members go over those falls. First my grandparents, then my parents, and now it's my turn. I'm going to be the next one over the falls. So there's the sweet and the sour that comes with every gift. But that's the crux of it, isn't it? It's a gift. The price of admission, sure, but I'll take that for the gift. Bad things are coming. I don't need to look for them. I don't want to find them, but they're going to come. And when they do, I look for the gift in them, because that's the price of admission. Here's the fee you have to pay in this life today. Don't worry, there'll be some really cool stuff coming out of it. That wires my entire being to search for those pieces and find them. Do you ever learn a word and suddenly you see it everywhere. Or you get a car or a dog and you start to see the same kind everywhere. Your brain is blind to those things we haven't patterned on. And it needs to understand that they're important for our survival or our success. If we can take control of that organ, mastery of mind, and programming is called that for a reason on television. If we turn that off and adopt our own ownership, hey, we could program this for our own benefit, rescripting pain, suffering, uncertainty, lack as lessons that are waiting to be unlocked so we can come out of it stronger on the other side, causes you to notice those things that will make that true.
Yeah.
And it's mastery of the mind, but it's really just, we were sold a bill of goods, K through 12, that somebody else is going to be responsible for our education, our learning. And when we surrender that, we surrender the fusion of our personal gifts, interests, the people we're attracted to as mentors to learn from, because not only do we trust them, but we see their gifts and we want at our level, in our way, what they have at their level and how they're expressing it, because they're really good at what they do. Wouldn't it be cool if you as a kid walked out and the neighbor was Bruce Lee and the other one was a master chef and the other one was an artist, Bob Ross was down the road, and whatever your interest was for that day, that week, that month, that year, that lifetime, there was a group of people who you resonated with that would love to share. And I say share in the most sincere way possible. That communication built on skill sets that I learned from your craft as you learned from mine simultaneously. How did you do that? Well, you know how you taught me how to do this one piece? If you scrape around it this way, I found that it comes out easy. Oh, that's awesome, man. Thanks. Every day.
Yeah.
So real learning gets inside and changes you. Communal craftsmen, passionate about their individual craft because they love themselves enough to share, become community.
Yeah. But a few things in there, and as you were talking about love themselves enough to share, because so many people kind of hoard that. And it's like, goes back to the whole thing of like, if you have $1 and I have $1 and we exchange dollars, we both walk away. Nothing's changed. We both walk away with $1. If I have information, you have information, and we exchange information, there's an additive effect to that, right?
Yeah.
And so many people are afraid to make that exchange in terms of, well, if I give you my information, you might become better than me. And it's like, what does it mean to be? And I think, you were talking about this idea, bad things are coming. And then you went on to say, well, it's like, there's a gift or a lesson in everything. It's because with any situation, who's to say if something is good or bad? And I think one of the things that I love to hear you talk about is when you talk, if anyone has been to any sort of survival class or survival school, they're going to tell you the fundamentals of survival are shelter, water, fire, food, shelter, water, fire, food. That's true. That's what we need to survive. You always add the first thing is attitude, because your attitude is going to impact how you approach your shelter, water, fire, and food. And so when I think about attitude, there's, in any given situation, I think there's two ways that you can go in. There's love and fear. Fear is like, I need to suffer through this until I get rescued. Love is, how do I make the best of this situation?
Yes. Until
I am no longer here, right? And I just love to hear about where did that orientation come from? Because of all kind of the books, videos, and people I've encountered teaching survival, everyone is shelter, water, fire, food.
Yeah. So, when I went shopping for other voices outside of my scout troop, the military was the known experts for survival. And they do a good job at what they do. And what they do is they train a large group of people in a short amount of time, the skills they would need to get back to base, to get back home in a short amount of time.
And a good skill to have. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. And we need that because, quite frankly, we become aliens on our own planet. We can name a half dozen jingles from major companies, global companies, but we can't understand 5 different birds that are in our yards, that live our reality in our space every day. The robin, the wood thrush, the chickadee, the house sparrow. These animals are experts at survival because they have serial killer hawks eating them every day, and awareness. But we're almost blind to their existence. So patterning on what's important has been taken over, and not knowing what's important is the biggest struggle between when you're in an environment, you don't know where you are, who these people are, what we're doing here. That's fear. But if you step outside and enter the woods and it feels like home, that's love. Grandma's cookies. You smell that smell, you're like, oh, there's something warm that washes over you. And now let's snap back to fear because there's a balance. Well, that's how you get yourself killed, brother. If you don't know enough, you don't respect the woods. Respect and fear are two different things.
Yeah.
People don't know that. You know, they feel like respect is born of fear. No, respect is born of a balance of unconditional love and that freezing terror that comes with your own imminent demise. Somewhere in the middle is respect. And people have to carry that respect for other entities, whether it's the forest, your car, your loved ones, yourself. And they have to take responsibility for how they carry it. How do you carry that respect for somebody that just rubs you the wrong way all the time? That's one of your most powerful teachers about you, isn't it? Now, you could always jujitsu that into something that is going to be more productive than, I hate that person. I call it break room talk, which is synonymous with bad medicine.
Yeah.
Right? Break room talk is seldom nourishing, uplifting, team building, empathetic. It seldom, focuses on positive outcomes or situations that can be shifted either through different approaches, perspectives, procedures, having systems in place to recognize that pain, anger, jealousy, violence, neglect, apathy are going to come up. But as masters of our own minds, those challenges are like going to the gym. And they're not to be, if you have a permanent scar, it's to be shown with pride. I survived this.
Yeah.
You can still love that deceased person who in your life left a big void and took years to recover from. And in some spaces, you still come to tears, maybe do a little ceremony in memory of them. That's important. But what were the gifts that came out of that? You want to honor their death? How did it make you stronger? How did it make you love more fully? How did it make you step into relationships with wider awareness of the investment you were about to make and the knowing of the heartbreak that could be happening?
Yeah.
And you do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's an adult.
Yeah.
Puppy love is aptly named.
Yeah.
I love you, you jerk.
Yeah.
Whereas an adult goes, we both are going to die, probably not at the same time. And it's going to break my heart because I'm going to invest my all into you.
Yeah.
Knowing this, I'm going to do it anyway because you're fantastic.
But I'm outing myself here as come on, who doesn't love Whitney Houston? And didn't we almost all has a great line in there. It's like, the ride with you was worth the fall. It's the recognition of the fact that when we choose love, we have to understand that can come with some things that can feel very painful.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it, because I have this theory, and I'm a distance runner. I'm a bit of a kind of a masochist in terms of like, I embrace physical pain in really weird, odd ways. And I often tell Becca, because the reason that I think I do that is because it creates more distance between pleasure and pain. And so it's like, the more pain you experience, the more, I think it opens you up to the more pleasure you can experience. And it's not easy, because it's the difference of just kind of living steady state versus knowing that, there's going to be, by opening yourself up, you're going to experience some emotional pain, but at the same time, in grief, you're going to experience some amazing things.
Yeah.
And that variability is what makes, I think, life exciting in many ways, and worth being. And
yeah. And in that space, when you can express it, you should express it.
Yeah.
Retelling the story of, I can feel appreciation now because 3 years ago I was not in a place to feel it. enforces that there's a space you can hold
Yeah.
where you can feel appreciation after getting your butt kicked.
Yeah.
The next time you get your butt kicked, if you didn't retell that story to others and yourself as you spoke it, you heard it.
Yeah.
You felt it.
Yeah.
Around the fire is a magic place to do these things. Aboriginal television, one channel, infinite stories, no commercials. And everybody taps into this ancestral spirit around the fire. They can't help but feel connected to something deeper than self.
Yeah.
Life feels at once sacred and so insignificant in the vastness of the space, especially when the stars are all out.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I think doing these conversations around a fire is so critical, because I think it primarily brings us to places that we don't fully understand, but they just naturally happen. They just do.
Grandfather Ray, my favorite quote of his is, "Hey folks, I'm glad you're here tonight. I got to open, but the one statement, I don't think any of us really know what's going on." They all come for his wisdom, right? And he starts off with that, and it's like, it's profound and it's spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think, and we were talking earlier in preparation for this, and one of the things you use this, I'm not saying it's overplayed, but I'm saying, I hear you say everything is basically both medicine and poisoning. So it all comes down to dosage.
Frequency of use and poison and dosage. Yeah.
And we were talking about that in the context of love and fear, because it's like, both of them are important. You're talking about them being a dance. And I view that the same way. It's like, you have to understand how these things play together, because we need both. Like fear to alert us, love to guide us. And would love to hear kind of from your perspective, how have you kind of thought about the balance of those two things in terms of what happens when there's too much love or not enough? What happens when there's too much fear and not enough? And how have you seen that in yourself? And even more importantly, how have you seen it through the people that have come through Maine Primitive? Because there's been so many people here that I've heard of just completely being transformed. I mean, going from like, almost like coming from a very strong place of fear and hate to all of a sudden have this grounded and interconnectedness that is just unreal.
Yeah, they just need to know there's an option. People are incredibly intelligent, but not normally emotionally intelligent. They're incredibly intellectually, everything's an equation that leads to certain death. Like, life's the only sexually transmitted disease that's 100% fatal. I start off with that line in a lot of the survival classes because it's funny and it's ironic and it's true and it's a little bit frightening. Just enough here, just a little bit of spice like paprika or maybe some cayenne. But the fear isn't designed to limit. It's designed to motivate. You're going to die. You want to dance while you're here, or you want to just sit in the corner in a fetal position and wait for you? Because the quality of this experience is finite. And let's go outside and play. We're going to build a shelter. What's the standard? Just to make it through the night? No. The standard is more comfortable than your bed at home. Now we're not building a survival shelter. We're building a fort, and we're kids, and it's going to be cool. And the standard's been set. The challenge has been set. Can you make it as comfortable as your bed? Suddenly, because it's fun, your body's engaged. It's not boring. And if it's boring, sit down, take a break. But do you hear that? That's the sound of the sun setting, and it's going to get cold tonight. Don't worry about it, though. If you need a break, take a break. Just remember that that's the inevitable thing happening is night. Night's coming. So people take a break, but the fear gets them up again. And then there's suddenly these two voices. This is fun, right? I mean, it was fun an hour ago. Yeah, but we could die. But it's fun? Yeah, but we could die. Congratulations. You've just been re-empowered with your birthright choice. Also known as sovereignty. Also known as empowerment or resilience or reliance. The power has been taken back and put into your own heart by not me, not the woods, but by a storyline of survival. We call it earth living, right? It's survival if your intention is to go out there and get rescued by somebody else. That's a lot of faith in somebody else.
Yeah.
But if you're a kid playing in the woods and you get your butt handed to you, but there's enough cultural support, safety redundancies that you can come into your tent. And if the tent's too cold, there's a wood stove going all night for you to fall back on. And then we report in at the end of the experience in the morning, everybody's got a sleep hangover because they didn't get enough sleep last night. And there's laughter because you're talking about how frozen your toes were, or the chipmunk that came up through your, and you're learning from each other. And there's people who've done it a while, enough that they could say, wait a minute, can you say that again? That one's a big lesson. Make sure you got that in your journals, folks. You see, we're amping this. It's like an accelerator, community, nature, and the hunger that people bring with them to want to improve themselves. That is the critical missing piece, the switch activator. When you walk into a situation and something bad happens to you, that's a different storyline than when you walk into a situation, something bad happens, and this is what you did. It could be the exact same scenario, but how you approached it gave you different results and outcomes.
Yeah.
Fear-based, without the love. What am I in this for? How can I make myself stronger from this? How can this help me serve my people? What do you have to live for?
Yeah.
There's the primal question. What gets you up out of bed in the morning with a smile on your face, peace in your heart, and the engagement of a 4-year-old you waiting to go on the playground? Or what puts you to bed at the end of the day? Wiped, but with a smile on your face and peace in your heart. A day well spent.
Yeah.
Those are the sweetnesses that allow you to go into those depths of fear and see it through the other side, aim through that target. Now, when love comes, family reunions, puppy love, that emergent honeymoon phase of a relationship, a newborn in the family, that love gives you the energy, the fuel, the endorphin release, so that when that diaper has to be changed, that unknown X comes back into their life. All of those inevitables, they're inevitable, but it's more of a roller coaster ride than a gauntlet that punishes you and pummels you and makes you feel worthless. Look in the mirror, turn the switch on. Do you feel worthless? Now turn the switch the other way. Are you the hero of your own story?
Mm-hmm.
Because both, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You chose.
Yep. Yeah. So I've heard you talk, and oftentimes we've talked about how when you were younger, you were angry.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you keep how did you make that transition? How do you keep yourself in a place where you're trying to lead with love, where you're being pulled by love versus being controlled by fear? Because it's like, these feelings are always coming up for us, and some people do a better job of managing it than others. And I think you do an incredible job. And I think, a little bit more context. I remember, the first time I came here was it's almost pushing 10 years ago now, where Becca and I came up here for our first weekend. And I remember it's like, my expectation for what we were coming into was going to be like hardcore survival. Here's a Marine and Maine Primitive. And it's like, yeah. And I experienced something that blew my mind. I experienced this from you, this kindness and compassion and this way of moving through the world that changed me. And from that point forward, I saw a different strength of, especially in terms of how men can show up in the world.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to talk about, how do you kind of balance that? How did you begin to make that transition? And how do you kind of maintain that, knowing that life is hard?
Yeah, being vulnerable isn't for the weak. You have to be strong enough to be vulnerable.
Right.
And the piece that comes with that is having your heart broken, having experienced loss born of sudden death of loved ones, or the loss of an entire community, or right. Now, there's an accumulative effect to all of those veils of grief that we have to walk through. And this is deliberate language, because people in this world seem to be more comfortable now with identifying as their grief. They are no longer themselves, and they've had all of these amazingly horrific things happen to them, but they're still themselves. They are identified by their grief. Like, I am a victim of, I identify as an alcoholic. I identify as I'm just Mike. I've been through those waterfalls and those barrels. I've had a few barrels bust on me, broke my neck, got shot, stabbed. Been in lots of fights. In fact, many of my fights were the foundation for lifelong friendships. And I intended it that way because I thought fighting was shallow, and it had I trained as a martial artist as a kid, and was really engaged in the whole tournament sparring. But there's a difference between combatives and martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Combatives is an impersonal attempt to extinguish somebody who's trying to kill you. It's very primal. And you say impersonal in quotes because when you get engaged in that level of violence, it moves you and it scars you for the rest of your days. And you can make that scar a debilitating thing, or you can make it an empowering thing. To empower it, what does it look like? How did I grow from that so it'll never happen again? That's growth. Versus, oh, I hope that never happens again. You're stunting your growth. You're creating a truncated experience where you're like a snail whose eyeball gets poked. You go in, your nervous system goes in, so does your empathy. So being vulnerable means reading a crowd, listening and hearing their stories, including that harmonic that exudes itself in endorphin release and body language cues that we interpret with emotion. Emotion is faster than thought. You can read a room in an instant if you're good at it. But many of us, especially in the modern Western expression of being a male, is stunted in our adolescence. We are the us and they are the them, and we must conquer the them before they conquer the us.
Mm-hmm.
That's a healthy expression in your teens as you learn how to identify who you are against the rest of the world. But at some point you realize the rest of the world is your home, and creating an enemy out of the world or trying to save it is counterproductive and very exhausting, and you're burning a lot of calories for very little gain. In fact, you're damaging more relationships than you're cultivating. When you put that down and you pick up love, even though you know it's going to go its own way, like there's a peak of fruition and then things die back. Part of the cycle. When you can accept that rhythm and you become part of it, you do more good than dis-ease. The dis-ease, that's what keeps things, that stirs the pot. It keeps things going. The righteous grief of the 20-something with their fist in the air pushes the elders to question their path and share the best practices before they cash out. The wheel keeps turning because of the dis-ease. But it doesn't have to always be without grace. You can dance. You don't have to flail. And if you fall, you can get up and bow. You don't have to brush off quickly and look around and hopefully nobody saw you.
Or it's just part of the dance.
It's just part of the dance. Enjoy the ride.
Whoever said that wasn't, one of your dance moves.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Yeah. One of the things that you've kind of has been woven throughout this conversation that, is a core lesson is the sense of so many people, myself included at times, move through life thinking that we don't have the agency. Oh. I have no choice.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's a choice.
Yeah. The old timers would call that being spiritual drift.
Yeah.
If you don't want to own your own stuff, then other people will. And they'll take it from you and they'll just make you do what they want you to.
Yep.
Programming. So by having personal agency, my mentor called it walking the razor's edge. On one side of that razor is unconditional love, purpose, the gentle, patient kindness of being completely well and in that nirvana state, that's opening your third eye, whatever you want to call it, bliss. And then the other side is that fear, panic, darkness, loathing, resentment, the lack in balance and blockage that we feel emotionally in dis-ease. And on that edge is the appreciation for both. And when one comes in, like a gardener, you bring in the other for balance, or you bring in the other for flow, or you remove that blockage with some sort of jujitsu move that allows that pain not to shackle you into not doing anything. You cry it out hard, you split a cord of wood, but then you come to a place where that anger, that resentment is fuel to get something done toward a healing. It happened because of this. I'm going to now move so that this doesn't happen again for the next generation or for this neighborhood or in the rest of my time here on this planet. Whatever happens to me, I don't know, but I'm going to allow that to affect me in a positive manner so that course correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things you said earlier, and talk about this idea of, you'd mentioned like physical scars. And I think men specifically take a lot of pride in physical scars.
Yeah.
And we don't even acknowledge to ourselves our emotional scars. A lot of men don't. And, I think it's taking a toll. I don't know if you've heard some of the statistics around men right now. Men in general are 4 times, and this is in the US, are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. Young men are 5 more times likely to commit suicide than their female counterparts.
Right. Well, of course, we don't go to the bathroom together. So
right.
when women get up to go powder their nose, they're actually kvetching, they're sharing, they're getting out tensions. We would look at it as quarreling and unnecessary verbiage. Why are you filling the void with all of that space? We're waiting for you because we have a mission. The mission is service, and the service is thankless. And we're not working hard enough if you're not happy. And there's a lot of heroic mythology without the support of the grandmother energy in our culture. We just forgot one major component. Strong, good men are born of strong, good women. And if you don't have that powerful matriarch in your family, your neighborhood, who stands up for and holds you accountable at the same time, then how do you know how to be a good man? Based on what? Other men? Hold my beer, watch this? And so we all go down together, right? Isn't that the Billy Joel lyric about the boys off to war in Vietnam? We came in as spastic horses. We left as numbered corpses. Well, that's what we're doing. With no adult supervision, we young Western males stay in our adolescence well into our 50s if we survive that long. And then if we do survive that long, we spiral health-wise from a sea of quiet desperation and excess empty carbs. It's easy to sit on the recliner and disappear into the remote control world while chowing on Cheez-Its, even when our partner, loved one, is incessantly yammering because her needs aren't being met, because we've decided it's too much and we shut down. And that has become the hero's journey in our modern world. I would respectfully put forth that hunter-gatherer nomadic versions of a hero's journey end in people becoming wisdom keepers at the end of their days. And when they cross over, their memory is honored as ancestor. Not, what do you mean Uncle Bart just died and he didn't leave me anything? And vultures picking over the bones because they're lacking. There's a hunger for something. People don't know what it is. But if you can look in the mirror and feel satiated with what you see in that reflection, that hunger goes away.
Yeah.
That's the balance of love and fear.
Yeah. It's interesting, as you were talking about, every good man comes from a good woman, and we've kind of the ancestral grandmothers. And I had a conversation, and I'd mentioned I'd mentioned him to you a few times because you both have the same mentor in Grandpa Ray, is Chris Lombard.
Yeah.
And your connection to nature and tracking is like his connection to horses. It's
beautiful.
It's amazing. And I can't wait to connect the two of you very soon. One of the things I did a podcast conversation with him, which is going to be the next one that's for release. One of the things we talked about, and he talked about horses, and he's like, when you approach horses, and if you come with too strong of a masculine energy, the horse is going to be like, no. And he had to kind of start to understand kind of it and be able to balance that with feminine energy. And like the whole thing even is like, when we talk about every good man, or someone who identifies as male, has that wisdom keeper, grandmother energy in them. They have that. And when we embrace that, and we embrace that softer side, is when we can kind of come into our full self of understanding, balancing love and fear is kind of the equivalent in many ways of needing to balance kind of those feminine and masculine energies within us.
Agreed.
And I think a lot of men struggle with this idea of accepting the fact that they have feminine energy.
Yeah. Because, shields up, armor on, get all guns ablazing, get ready to go. We're going in, boys. That's not necessary.
Yeah.
This forest isn't trying to kill you. It's just trying to grow.
The forest is just the forest.
Yeah. What we bring to it. It reflects what we bring to it. So you have people who are going to go out there and suffer. And their skills are really good at suffering. They're really good at getting a fire going until all the firewood gets burnt up. They're really good at a quick shelter, again, until all the firewood gets burnt up. And that's okay. If you want to stay at homeostasis with a dependency in the modern world, I get it. I love the conveniences of the modern world. I use them every day. I'm not going to forget how to use a lighter because I can do a hand drill. I just like the idea of more options and choices, and the idea that I could feel at home in as many environments as I can before I cash out. I went to Tokyo recently because I was afraid of cities. I didn't do well in cities. With my empathy, I lasted for maybe half a day, and then I started getting exhausted.
Yeah, you feel so much of that. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so learning how to be at peace in the city was one of my big homework assignments for myself. And Tokyo was a good place to do it. And it was culturally, it was so different. The city in Tokyo was quiet. It was quiet. New York, hey, get out of here. What are you doing? Shut up, mister. Hey, was I talking to you? Like, the baseline is chatter.
Yeah.
And horns honking. And even the trains and the cars were quiet in Tokyo. You could walk down streets. There wasn't a lot of traffic, but it's a massive city. It's way bigger than New York. And it's much more, oddly enough, compressed than New York. But it's so peaceful. I'm going to dare to use the word peaceful for a city, where up till I went there, I was convinced that cities cultivated sociopathy. You had to have a certain disconnect to step over a homeless person on your way to work. You had to do the 1,000-yard stare lest somebody ask you for money. If you engaged on a human level in any capacity, you were at risk, right? That's the fear piece.
Yeah.
But if you have a baseline of respect, and it could be damaging, I'm sure, everything in its own dosage and frequency of use.
Yes.
You could make space in public places for peace. And they seem to have that going on pretty good.
Yeah. But it's interesting. A friend of mine I was talking with him recently. He was talking about a story, is like a Buddhist story of fundamentally what it comes down to is basically you spill what you carry. So it's like if you bump into something, it's like asking the question, well, you bumped into me and I spilled my coffee. It's like, well, why'd you spill the coffee? Because you bumped into me. It's like, no, because you were carrying coffee. If you were carrying water, you would have spilled water. And the idea of like, if you're carrying love, you spill love. If you're carrying fear, you spill fear. And it's for like, as you were talking about going to Tokyo, and you said it felt peaceful, there's a part of me that was like, well, I think you were carrying peace. So you spilled peace. Despite the fact that it's probably not, it's nowhere near as peaceful as this right here.
Right.
But you still found the peace.
It's funny. Yeah. What's the Apache saying? One day I woke up to look for my friends and I couldn't find any enemies. So the next day I woke up to look for my enemies and I couldn't find any friends.
Yes.
You ask and it's made manifest.
Yeah.
I think the larger half of that is you dial your antenna array, your nervous system toward a certain frequency and you start to receive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it goes back to, another thing that you say, and I've applied this to so many different things. It's like everything is just energy through systems. And it's like, I've spoken with you. I know you still struggle with the concept of capitalism and money. And I said money is just energy through systems.
Yeah, sacred exchange.
And so when you talk about vibrations, it's just energy, right? And if there's so much of that I think we've closed ourselves off to, particularly men, around experiencing energy. And you said you struggle with I have the same struggle with going to cities, even more so now because it's just so intense. I feel the energy so strong. And it's not like it's bad. It's intense.
It's intense.
And it's just so much.
There's a vibration that's a lot quicker than out here.
Yeah. And I just have to, in what I need to do is I need to better set myself up for that.
Yeah.
Of just because knowing that I'm so susceptible to be able to feel that energy. And I like cities. I don't want to live in a city, but I do like visiting them because, as you were talking about going to the city and it was a challenge for you.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about, this idea that when we talk about hard things, I think there's two ways you can look at it. Some people might say a fear-based way of looking at hard things is like, I don't do hard things because they're hard. A love-based way of it is I do hard things because they're hard.
Yes.
Right? Because there's always something greater that comes out on the other side.
Yep. Stretching your edge or working your edge. That's what I call it. Getting out of comfort into discomfort for the sole purpose of growth.
Yeah.
And if discomfort comes and you're already wired for discomfort as growth, then you grow. That's a beautiful thing, really. It's like going to the gym for life.
Yeah.
I built a few walls yesterday because it was storming.
Yes. You chose to do framing of the new shelters that you're building here in a snowstorm.
Simply because it was a big snowstorm. Like I had a leaf blower going every 20 minutes so I could see my measurements.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Like, this is so ridiculous and beautiful and exhilarating. And yeah, I would love to do it again. Now, half hour before that, come on, Mike, what are you doing? You're crazy. It's so warm in here. Besides, I bet you could probably binge some instructional YouTube videos. Maybe there's a deal on Craigslist. Like it's pulling me, right?
Yeah.
And I got a belly full of warm coffee and it's snowing and it's starting to come down. But I think the catalyst that got me out there was, how bad do you want this?
Mm-hmm.
You say you love what you do.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like this spring? What is the pinnacle of that love that you really love what you do? How does that look in May? And it looks like I have comfortable shelters for people who've never been in the woods to make a transition into the woods.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to do, is go out there and do it. And
yeah.
It suddenly became fun.
Yeah.
So,
I think you just said something, and I think this is a really important nuance when we actually talk about love, the idea of actually loving something or loving the idea of something.
Yeah.
Because I think I've come to, for myself, I love music, love music. And I've always wanted to be proficient at an instrument, specifically the guitar.
Mm.
And it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'll pick one up, especially during the winter, and I'll be able to commit to it. But I think what I've come to realize is I probably love the idea of being able to play the guitar more than I actually love playing a guitar.
Good to know.
And it's like, okay, that's just awareness. And so, because the one thing that we have to understand is that, like, I also think about love in the context of yes and no. Of like, sometimes it's really important to say no so that you can open yourself up to more yeses. Because if I'm saying, hey, I want to play guitar, so I'm spending 15, 20 minutes a day to play kind of half-heartedly, what else could I be doing with that time that is a kind of a stronger yes?
Nice.
And I think that's, as you were talking about what you were doing, it's like, how much do I love this?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was very clear. You didn't love the idea of what you were building. You love what you're building.
Yes.
And the ability to be able to get people who might not be as comfortable in nature to create a little bit more comfort for them, because maybe that first step of being purely in kind of the natural environment and not in what we call our modern shelters was enough to prevent them from kind of
it's overwhelming. You're asking someone who's never seen water to go swim.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to understand that. How can you not love the woods? Everybody loves the woods.
Yeah.
Well, I don't do nature. Like you get wide-eyed and worried.
Yeah.
Thought, okay, I got to meet people on their own edge. Again, my metric for myself, child version, Mike, everybody, this is me and this is how it's going to be. The world is mine and this is the life you will all understand. The adult version me. Oh, that's where you're at. Okay, let me get there with you. And then let's find some common ground and then let's hash some things out and grow together.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more time consuming, a little bit more nuanced, much more rewarding at the end. Side effects include lifelong friendships, profound change in perspective, growth, a gratitude born of trial and error, hardship, and shared story. Shared story. That's like family level stuff. When you have friendships that You have the hearty laugh of we almost died 2 years ago, kind of. That shared story builds decades long friendships, intense bonds. People unfortunately forge it in the military during combat, and it's based in triage.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be based in triage.
I just remember it was just a couple months ago that I was here with a few other people, and we're doing the bow making class, and we're out here, and you're spending hours just slowly taking away biomass, and it gets to the point you just start having conversations, and then we started playing Would You Rather, and of course we were complete strangers 2 days ago, and now we're talking about would you rather eat chicken shit or human shit?
Yep.
And because these things get accelerated, and it's like, okay, that's a silly example, but we got to this point of comfort where we were having conversations within 2 days that are just pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Kind of last train of conversation, and one of the reasons why I love doing this around the fire is because a fire is such a metaphor for so many things. Like I don't need to get into it with you, but one of the things that a fire takes tending, right? And one of the things I really think about is what are the fires that we need to be tending in ourselves and in our communities and in society at large right now. When you kind of look at the state of things, the state of people, the state of the world, what do you think are the fires that we actually need to tend to get more healing for everyone?
Yeah. I'm going to use the law of opposites. So when it's really hot out, we seek the shade. The deer go down into the swamp. When it's really cold, the sunny spaces, right? Ideally on a south exposed wall, reflecting the heat towards us. Lauder and lack, fear and love. Two essential elements combining to create the wholeness of being. To tend a fire in that shelter, water, fire, food dichotomy is the minimum. Look in the mirror first. Start with attitude. Do you love who you are? If immediately it's no, then the action list of how you're going to resolve that should start to happen now. How do I fix that? I'm going to go outside more. I'm going to spend more time with my children. I'm going to listen more intently to people's needs. I'm going to relax more. I want to get more sleep. I want to have a better diet. I want to take care of myself better than I do now. All right. How are we going to do that? I think I need to stop buying junk food. That's a very good first step, Mike. And I'm talking to myself in the mirror. Someone might come by and look like I have 3 heads, and I'll laugh really hard. I'm not going to be embarrassed. Because in this play, this life that we live, and we are the main character for our own play, if someone's laughing in the audience, I've helped them be happy. If they're laughing at me in that moment of vulnerability, I'm laughing at me too, because it was a moment of vulnerability that I got to share with someone who loved me. Mm-hmm. And in that, they know more about me. Tending your sacred fire starts with self. You can't spread ease if you carry dis-ease in your heart about who you are. It shouldn't drive you. The dis-ease should fuel your love for self first. And that filter will take care of the rest. If you have dis-ease and it drives you to make other people happy, you're spreading dis-ease. If you have dis-ease and it gets you off the couch and you look at the landscape and address the needs of the people around you, your loved ones, your community, starting with self. Did I get enough sleep? Yeah, maybe I'll sleep another 90-minute cycle. Then when I get up, and I know it's the weekend, but my neighbor, she's been trying to rake all those leaves and she's in her 80s. I think I'm going to surprise her. And then maybe go over and have some coffee with her and see how she's doing. I'm going to rake her lawn. And then I'm going to ask her where she wants the leaves as the premise for 2 cups of coffee, because I know she drinks coffee on her back deck. And we're just going to catch up in a while, right? And that makes me feel good. It makes her feel valued. And out of those conversations, the most amazing opportunities emerge. Suddenly she's revealing to you how she's got a nephew who has too many puppies, and you have a son whose birthday's coming up and he always wanted a dog. And energy moving through systems, once you become part of that energetic system exchange, it flows through you too. And that, there's bounty in that. It's an untapped resource, but it requires loving yourself enough that you feel nourished and secure and at peace, to then go out from that place of peace and strength to help other people sincerely, not as a thrashing, I need to feel better about myself and feel useful and valued, but I have use, I have value. How can I share?
It's almost, if I'm hearing you, there's a little bit of like, we need to tend that love inside of us. And once that love has been built up, we can actually, that's what enables us to then go out and spread the energy of that love.
That's the realm of the adult warrior. A child warrior thrashes against an imaginary or an actual enemy, an other. The adult warrior recognizes the battles within. And it's unconditional love for self, for family, for ecos, our home, the environment. The environment includes our neighborhoods, our cities, our backwoods, our fields. Yeah, all of it. So there's no such thing as boredom when you're in it because everything's connected. So you're in the dance. Right? I'm bored. That doesn't even make sense to me. Why? Maybe you're tired. You just need a rest. Yeah. Maybe you need a digestion period where you're going to wander and process all that you just had happen, because sometimes that's important. But bored, I don't know what that means anymore. It doesn't even make sense. Why would you be bored in this life? Unless you haven't had the grief to fully appreciate how temporary this life is. And then bored is just a symptom of excess calories and lack of appreciation. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. It's just an indicator.
Yeah. It's a sign.
Yeah.
It's like, it goes back to when you talk about tracking.
Yeah.
Why is this here?
What is this telling me? What should I do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's everything. Light. And this is one thing that I've always been amazed by, your ability to take these tracking skills and apply them to every area of life, and to look at anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Look at something as, why is this here? What is it telling me? And what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And it's also, there's a sense of agency in this, because it is, what am I going to do about it?
Exactly. We own at least our response. At least our response.
Yeah.
We may not be able to control the environment if, we're cast into something unexpected, a plane crash or get lost on a dirt road. I don't know. But we always own our response. Is this an excuse to miss work and an adventure unfolding? Or is this certain doom and gloom? Because the answer is yes to both of those. Again, with agency comes the most powerful tool in our repertoire: choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to thank you so much for sitting down and talk to me. I always love these conversations. I'm so excited to listen back on this. And I just want to express so much gratitude to you as the police car is going by, because it's like over the last year, it's been so amazing that I've been able to add one more person to my life that I can say I love you to, and not have to joke or laugh about it, that I can honestly say, I love you. I love what you're doing in the world. And I just love how you have helped to make me a better person. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend, my brother.